premised on a different concept. There is an agenda, and until we realize that, we're not going to win. Rural America is going down in flames. About a third, I just saw an article this week, about a third of the counties, the rural counties in this country are about to go into oblivion, and I believe that's by design. So I think that we're going to be taking a different approach to this. We're organizing people, activists who begin to really realize that there's fundamental problems here. They're not being properly addressed, and we're organizing. We're organizing people around the problems that exist in these counties, and we're organizing across counties and across states. And so far, it's been pretty darn effective. We had 5 launches in California. The Fresno one was attended by 750 people, where Steve was one of the panelists, but we had panelists from different groups. I think Ron spoke on hydropower and so forth. The people have got to rise up again, because if you don't rise up again, we're not going to have this country anymore, at least not the founding principles that we have seen. It's being taken away from us. Now, as I look across rural America, and I'm talking the entire nation, the situations you're having in this county, or the individual property assault on you, whether it's a gold miner, a rancher, a farmer, the timber person, you think it's an isolated issue. It's not. It's happening across the country. They're blowing up dams, they're shutting down energy supplies, they're reducing food production, they're reducing timber production. We have, by the last estimate I saw, $150 trillion in natural resources, and they're on their way to shutting them down. And the alternative, which they're now proposing in places like El Dorado County, 4 counties up in the Goldie area, is to bring in foreign investment and put in a free trade zone and bring in a new economy. That's the approach. Now, we know what that approach means in Boise, Idaho. That means communist China is putting a footprint on the United States, and I'll tell you what, those resources will be made available to them. Your resources. So we have got to basically unify. Now, no one group has enough to pull it off. The miners don't have enough, the farmers don't have enough, the ranchers don't have enough, the timber people don't have enough. Really, the solution is to begin to work together, to unite, just like the unions did. And so far, that approach is beginning to pay dividends. Up in Siskiyou County, where they want to blow up 4 dams, and they want to make that determination in November of 2011, when we launched Defend Rural America up there, that was the first launch. We had about 1,000 people show up on October 22nd. We had the sheriff stand Paul for the panel. I was the one that worked with John Lopi on that. We had my presentation documentary done on Siskiyou County story. So far, we've shut him down. He was unable to go ahead in mid-November and make that determination. He was unable in December to make that determination, and February was the deadline, and he still could not make that determination. The people rose up. We took the Tea Parties, we took Protect Our Water, we took this, Siskiyou County Water Users Association, all the groups that are there. We had over 50 groups in support in Northern California and Southern Oregon that came together in support of that event. And when I asked the audience, how many of you from outside of Siskiyou County, about a third of the audience, a third. I think that surprised the heck out of the Siskiyou County people to realize there was that many people that cared about them, and likewise I want them to care about other people, and they have been having all kinds of trans-state meetings up in Medford, Oregon, and elsewhere. There's been a total, I think, of about 12 or 15 different events. Some are being run by other people, but along the same theme, pulling together, organizing around the process, the principle to defend rural America. We can't continue to act like these little individual battles and little individual skirmishes. Nor can we continue to say, woe be me, woe be me, woe be me. It doesn't play too well in San Francisco Bay where I work. Everybody else has woe be me's. What we have to do is to convey our message in a way that resonates with the people that we're talking to. So we're changing the name of the game. Now here's what happened. I sent out today, for those who were on my email list, you saw a blast. Essentially, I sent a letter directly to the California Forestry, what is it called? Forestry, it used to be forestry and game, what was it? Something in game,
Fish
now
and
it's
game.
called, huh?
Fishing.
Fish and game, sorry. I'm gonna go, senior moments. Which they now have changed to wildlife, right? They changed the emphasis. Essentially blasting a letter that they had received from California Water Board saying, hey, we want you to shut down gold mining. We don't have really any data to support it, but we think you ought to do it permanently now. I sent that out to 50,000 people, my letter, including all the sheriffs that I know in the Northern California parks and the parks that actually have gold prospecting. John Lope, Greg Hadwood, you name it, they got it. I sent it out to every single county commissioner in 3 counties where I thought that was appropriate. Steve got one for forestry. We sent them up to people up in Siskiyou County. And in there, what I actually told the story is, how can you have an agency sit there and say, we're worried about mobilizing potentially mercury from the ground, from the riverbeds, when they actually tested the riverbeds and found none. And they had to go out to the bank to find some. Well, that's not where they actually do this prospecting, this vacuuming. And furthermore, they can't show any chain, any data whatsoever to show anything is actually going on there. The industry has been in business for 50 years or so and nothing's happened. So what we did is we tied all these stories together. Siskiyou County, we actually had Dr. Paul Hauser has actually blown the whistle on the falsified science that they used in trying to justify those dams. If you watch the documentary video, you realize just how crazy it was. I went out to Drake's Bay Oyster Farm and I talked to Dr. Corey Goodman, who studied the data, and again it concluded fraudulent misconduct, intentional scientific misconduct.
Seize the moment on that.
On behalf of various different agencies that were doing this, and when you caught them at it, they continue to do it again. So my letter then tied the gold industry into these. And slowly but surely people are beginning to realize and see in a tangible way that by supporting each other, you actually have a better chance at yourself. And slowly, piecemeal, we're making this happen. And I'm happy to work with Steve. Steve is of the opinion that it's a kind jump of government, and I applaud his efforts. I'm under a slightly different perception. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what actually happened in Apache County, somewhat different from what Steve would tell you. The way that got started was a guy like me by the name of Doyle Shamley, who had studied the Constitution, studied the jurisdiction, really understood the nature of what's going on, and went to his county supervisors and showed them the law, showed them the Supreme Court decisions, showed them all of these constitutional justifications, which they then studied, having an attorney on that county commissioner themselves, and decided his arguments were solid. The sheriff did, in fact. He's a Native American Indian. I've met the individual. Steve has met him. He basically said, they stole this country from me once. I'm not going to let them do it twice. So he did, in fact, stand up. But what was really supported is the whole thing worked together. The county commissioners passed 2 unanimous resolutions, and this is important. The first was a declaration of a state of emergency, because they just had the biggest fire that they'd ever had. And now the fire, all these trees, all this brush are right against their homes and neighborhoods, and so they declared a state of emergency. And the second one was, we're going to go ahead and start cutting the trees. And they basically sent that to the federal government and says, we hope you work with us, but if you don't, we're going to do it anyway. Because they understand their role in health, safety, and welfare, they have the jurisdiction, they understand the Eisenhower Report in 1962. It says the federal government does not have jurisdiction over the national forests.
That's right.
It does not. It's not fraud. They like to believe, but they don't. We, the counties, have. And so we're working with county commissioners to try and the sheriffs are beginning to get this message. They're coming out very proactively to these meetings. I've seen a number of these sheriffs up in Reno, right, Steve? We see them in Reno, we go up to Sacramento, we see them. You know, they're going to the same places we are. I'd like to see some more county commissioners come along too, because we're learning that things are a lot different than we think they are.
Yep.
So, for example, we've had Doyle Shamley, who I think is one of the greatest people in the entire movement. We sent him all up and down the state of California making presentations, including all 5 of the Defend Rural America launches. You can go to the Defend Rural America website page and you can actually watch his presentation. He's coming back to Fresno,
Yes.
probably in a month or two. But Doyle does understand these things. So we've sent him all around. Now, most recently, he came back up to Nevada County. He came and made a presentation to the Board of Commissioners, the Board of Supervisors, I forget which way they go there, in Nevada City. And I'm working with Chuck Shea of CABPRO there. And basically made a presentation, and the board up there was beginning to think about these concepts. Del Norte County is beginning to think about these, and Greg Hadwick up in Plumas and all these other counties that we're working with are beginning to say, hey, wait a minute here. Maybe we got more that we can do than we're doing. You really have two choices, and it's become abundantly clear because I've read this thing called the Next Economy that's being submitted to what they call the capital region, regional governance, central planning, stakeholders. All that kind of language comes right out of Agenda 21. And basically what they're proposing is as follows. Now the board doesn't quite understand this, so I'll be going back up to the board in El Dorado County to present this to them in person, but I'll release it in my report next week. If you want, you can get on my mail list and get a copy. What that basically analysis says, here's Plan A. Plan A is we fight to save this country and our republic, our constitutional rights, our property rights. And we got to get our county commissioners, our sheriffs on board with this. And we know how to fight. And we have tools to do that. Coordination, jurisdiction, constitution, things that are spelled out on the website. The second is we're going to have communist China come on in here and set up free trade zones and take your forest anyway.
No.
That's your choice. And if anybody doubts me, you'll get a copy of the Next Economy report. And despite the language, most people really don't know how to read things. If you really read between the lines what it's saying, the role of local government, county and city government, is one, approve the regional governments, approve the idea it's going to be made by stakeholders which don't live in those counties, and two, get out of the way. We will work with the state and the federal governments. And you will have no representation. Government consists of two things, policy and enforcement. What the word governance means in the United Nations language that's floating around is the policy making is taken away from the people and your local governments and your representative republics, and it's put into a group of stakeholders.
Soviets.
Now let's take an example. The Klamath Basin Race Restoration Agreement of Siskiyou County involves 4 Klamath River dams. The proposal is they put together a hodgepodge of individuals, government agencies, Portland, Oregon, Washington, D.C., don't actually live in Siskiyou County, mind you. And they're saying, well, we have a stake in these dams, and we have a vision. We're going to manage this entire Klamath River Basin. 9 counties. 5 in California, 4 in Oregon, an area the size of the state of Maryland. And then they're going to the federal government, this is what the whole thing was about, to get a charter. It will then remove the people and local government from any voice whatsoever in all the decisions that affect the major resources in your counties. That's where the alternative is. For myself, I choose to fight. I think the founding principles were right. I believe in free will. I believe in a representative republic. That's the thing we're guaranteed. I believe in property rights. They should not be taken away from us. If that resonates with you, we have a pretty vibrant group here in Fresno. Go ahead, if you haven't been involved, Kay and Carol, a lot of the people here in the room, go up to them and make sure that you tell them that you want to get involved. And I certainly want to see the young people here because I'll tell you what, it's going to affect you more than anybody else.
Yep.
I have no children. I'm in this purely because I believe in the values here. The youth have got to get involved as well. I'm glad that you had some younger people. It's awesome to be back. I thank you all.